Part 24. The little mute's life was stolen, and the wealthy boss comes to spoil him. Author, do you want to eat rabbit head? Chapter 231. Chapter 231. Old friends meet but don't recognize each other. She could not tell anyone what she was thinking. You cannot expose yourself or leave danger to others. She wants to quietly make those pythons pay the price, even if it takes her whole life. Sci-fi swallowed what he wanted to say when he saw Tang Wan's appearance. The plane also arrived at its destination. The west coast is an island, surrounded by many private islands. The destination of Siwei and Tangguan is also a private island, the Si family's island. When you go out, you are sitting on a yacht. If you buy things, there are also on this island. It's not possible to transport it. It is convenient. When they landed on the island, the staff on the island who were preparing to welcome them were fully prepared. You know, the price offered by the Si family is really generous. At least in the past few years, they had never had contact with their own employer. From then on, she disappeared from the entertainment industry and studied hard. Only occasionally did she know what she had done from some very remote news. Those very cute young ladies look at me like this. And some of the staff here are fans of Tang Wan. But when they saw one big and one small coming off the plane, they were stunned. If they admit their mistake correctly, the younger one is the child star who was very popular at the time, Tang Wan, right? But it is a pity that many directors, producers, and even entertainment companies spent a lot of money to sign Tang Wan, but no one agreed. If you lose this job opportunity, it will be difficult to find such a good job in the future. Fortunately, the foreman standing next to her saw how excited his little sister was, so he reached out and patted her arm to prevent her from making a fool of herself. And for those little brats who turn bad when they get rich, Tang Wan is simply a breath of fresh air. Tang Wan felt that the look in his eyes was like the fans who came to see him when he was recording a variety show. This is also the strangest place. So Tang Wan took out a tablet from his school bag and wrote on it. What's wrong? Most of those news are positive, uplifting, and conducive to social development. So when I saw Tang Wan, I was so excited that I almost jumped up. But Tang Wan felt a little familiar when she looked at him, so he stopped and looked at her for a few times, prompting Si next to her to ask. Although he was excited, he had no intention of disturbing Tang Wan. They spend a lot of money to maintain the island every year, but they never come up to play. How rich do you have to be so worried? Fortunately, that fan is not an ignorant person. In fact, their employers rarely come here. The island here is only taken care of all year round. As for recreation, there are really very few. Are you the young lady who followed variety shows back then? The fan didn't expect that Tang Wan actually remembered that. He nodded quickly, his eyes a little red. Yes, I didn't expect you to still remember me, Tang Tang. Wow, Mom, sister is so touched. She is a mother fan, but obviously Tang Wan has elders around her. She can't claim to be Tang Wan's mother in front of Si. That would be outrageous. Obviously this fan is not brave enough to do whatever he wants in front of his employer. Tang Wan suddenly smiled and looked particularly cute. Si also pretended that he didn't hear what the fan said, turned around and walked towards the villa. Tang Wan jumped up to the fan, stretched out her hand and placed a candy in his palm, just like she did every time she gave out candy. These candies always carry her little blessings, hoping that everyone's life will be sweet. This fan obviously also knew that Tang Wan liked to give out candies when expressing his gratitude, so when he saw this candy, he became even more excited and looked like he was about to faint. The foreman was a little helpless. She held her forehead and led Tang Wan towards the play area, still introducing Tang Wan to it. This side is the swimming pool and this side is the drinks area. The small boat here can go to other islands, but before going to the island, you need to communicate with the other island group to confirm the appointment time. Tang Wan nodded, indicating that he understood. She looked up and looked at the island opposite, and saw at a glance that it was covered with a sea of flowers of a different kind. Like the blooming spring, especially beautiful. Only. Tang Wan narrowed his eyes slightly and looked at the figure flashing above, feeling a little curious. She always felt that the figure just now seemed familiar to her, as if she had seen it somewhere. But when she wanted to confirm, she saw nothing. It seemed that the glance just now was just her illusion. The foreman saw Tang Wan stop and thought she was curious about this place, so he took the initiative to explain, the island opposite was just bought, and the island owner over there didn't stay here long. But Miss Tang should have heard of their names. Tang Wan looked at the foreman and raised the tablet. What's their last name? The foreman thought for a moment, then spoke hesitantly. It seems to be a foreign surname, called Brown. Tang Wan shook his head. She doesn't know Brown. Perhaps the classmate next to me remembered it wrong. The next classmate was stunned when he saw Tang Wan shaking his head in denial. It seemed that some things were not as he thought. She scratched her head in embarrassment, and then said, I see, maybe I remembered it wrong. You know, foreigners actually look the same in our eyes. Tang Wan smiled and didn't take it to heart. But her eyes fell on the flowers just now. But he quickly looked away. She followed the foreman and continued walking, getting familiar with the island. However, the moment she took steps forward, a head stuck out from the flowers. The eyes kept looking at Tang Wan's back until Tang Wan disappeared from his eyes. A little girl with her eyes covered with black gauze walked out of the villa. Her voice was trembling, and she shouted to the people in front of her, Master, the Godfather has asked you to eat. The young man hiding among the flowers suddenly jumped out. There was a small pink flower on his head, swaying in the wind, and he looked full of energy. He glanced at the blind girl and smiled. Speaking in fluent Spanish, I just saw your old friend. Is that what you say over there? After saying this, he watched with satisfaction as the girl in front of him became even more frightened. Then he said in that exaggerated tone, I wonder if you regret coming here with me. But thanks to you, I have seen a lot of interesting things. For the sake of your worth, I'll let you live a little longer. The little mute's life was stolen, and the wealthy boss comes to spoil him. Author, do you want to eat rabbit head? Chapter 232. Chapter 232 Humans have 206 bones. The blind girl held her skirt tightly and did not dare to speak. Just hearing Frank's words, I knew that he had met Tang Wan again. The girl felt a lot of bitterness in her heart when she thought of this. Tang Wan again. Why is everyone looking for her? Why is everyone attracted to her? Tang Wan. Obviously, all of this should be mine. You should die that night, in a corner where no one cares about you. Do you think you can change your destiny just by jumping down? You clearly don't remember anything. Just when the girl was thinking this, Frank stopped halfway, looked at her, and said, Sujiajia, I hope you won't let us down this time. She wants to find traces of her mother's existence. Is the room where my mother lived? The nanny panted and put the slippers in front of Tang Wan, still saying, Miss Tang, please don't come to this room. When Tang Wan was at home, she heard Grandma Si mention this room. The sea is calm, but the wind stirs up waves, like broken glass, sparkling like the moonlight sinking to the bottom of the sea. The slightly salty wind blew on Tang Wan's face, like a message. Following the spiral staircase, Tang Wan walked all the way to the top. Her emotions calmed down instantly and became calm, as if the crazy emotion just now had never happened. Tang Wan took off her shoes. Before the nanny beside her could take out her slippers, she saw Tang Wan walking up to the fourth floor barefoot. She quickly returned to the villa and heard a crackling sound coming from the glass window. She couldn't bear to destroy this place either. Tang Wan glanced around the room and heard the nanny at the door calling her name. She could only look away regretfully and walked out. The sky suddenly darkened, and when I turned around, it started raining. Sujiajia lowered her head and walked to Frank's side according to the route in her memory. Then he pushed open the attic. This is a scar that he cannot face, Tang Wan understands, but she has more important things. The raindrops as big as beans fell on Tang Wan's face, leaving a watermark. This place is very clean. There is a transparent window above the head. Looking up at the sky, it is like trying to survive in the water. But this room is too clean, everything in it has been put away, and Tang Wan can't find where those things are. Over the years, my father has never been here. It's the rain beating on the glass. That's all I have in mind, sir. Hearing this sentence, Tang Wan turned his head in a daze. She saw the shadow at the corner, it was her father who came in first. It's just that I couldn't bear to reject myself, so I asked someone to remind me. The nanny was still chattering, minding her own business. All my wife's things have been given to the government, and only this room still has her shadow. Miss Tang, please be nice to your husband, he only has this little thing. Tang Wan doesn't think Sci-fi would tell anyone this. So where did this nanny hear this? The nanny saw that Tang Wan was distracted, and a trace of anger flashed in her eyes, but thinking of her current status, she did not lose her temper. Just said these words more seriously. There was a boom, and a bolt of lightning cracked in the sky. Tang Wan turned around fiercely and looked at the villa that was illuminated by lightning. In a daze, the scene in front of her was the same as that night. The day my mother was tortured to death, it also rained heavily. The nanny seemed to want to say something, but Tang Wan turned around and ran away. She grabbed Tang Wan's hand with a fierce tone. Miss, why are you running? Tang Wan shook her hand away and ran barefoot in the corridor. No, that shadow just now was not my father. It's not safe here. Tang Wan opened his mouth and wanted to call out Sci-fi's name. But she can't speak yet. Father, father. The downpour was pouring at this moment, and the waves were rolling outside making a huge sound. The villa was eerily quiet, with only the sound of Tang Wan's hurried footsteps echoing. Sudden. Tang Wan heard the sound of bullets being loaded. The familiar voice brought back her memory and stopped her in her tracks. Heavy footsteps came from behind Tang Wan. A cold hand with the smell of sea water grabbed Tang Wan's neck and lifted her up. Tang Wan did not waste his energy and stayed quietly on his hand while looking around. The feeling of a foreign body on his neck made Tang Wan unconsciously open his mouth and take a deep breath. A very niche language came to her ears, which was equated with the man on the rainy night. Tang Wan could not control his trembling. But not because of fear. It is excitement. Found it? Found him. You've grown so big. His voice was very low, sounding like the calmness of a cello, and he was sighing like a whisper between lovers. If it weren't for the fact that Tang Wan was only 10 years old and the gun at her waist, it might be more convincing. You are really smart, just like your mother. But people like you are too stubborn. Why do you have to find the truth? Isn't it good to live in ignorance? There is an old saying in your country, curiosity killed the cat. A curious child like you will not survive to adulthood. Tang Wan couldn't speak, so she could only reach out and grab his fingers, trying to open his hand. The feeling of suffocation almost overwhelmed Tang Wan. But even at such a tense moment, Tang Wan did not stop thinking. Her vision was a little blurry, and there was still the patter of rain in her ears, and she seemed to see her mother in front of her eyes. The rain was so heavy that the blood on my mother's body was carried far away. There was no good spot on her face, but she didn't make a sound. Humans have 206 bones. They first broke their mother's finger bones, hoping to hear her mother's voice begging for mercy. But my mother didn't make a sound, and even her painful inhalation was drowned out by the sound of rain. I was locked in a cabinet by my mother, remembering the agreement with my mother. Don't talk, you can't talk. They broke her bones, covered her face with something mixed with lake water and mud, and pressed her to the dirty ground again and again. As long as Tang Wan closes her eyes, she will see her mother's straight spine under the moonlight. Broken bones, shattered corpses, traces of survival that cannot be pieced together. The small room and the damp underground are the memories of Tang Wan's struggle to survive. Tang Wan has never forgotten them. From his mother's love, the strongest hatred grew in Tang Wan's body. She doesn't want her mother to be buried in the soil without spring, and she doesn't want no trace in this world. The usual calmness collapsed at this moment, and the pain in his heart was the real Tang Wan. She is more determined than ever and more rational than ever. Puff is the sound of a sharp knife being inserted into the body. The warm blood splashed across Tang Wan's face and fell on her eyelids, as if dyed with red gauze. Like the stamens blooming from the bright red. Bloody and deadly. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The little mute's life was stolen, and the wealthy boss comes to spoil him. Author, do you want to eat rabbit head? Chapter 233. Chapter 233. Please, don't leave me. She moved quickly without any hesitation. The knife penetrated the man's wrist, and the tip of the knife was also aimed at Tang Wan's neck. Just a little bit away, Tang Wan would die by his own hands. The fragile skin was scratched by a sharp knife, and drops of blood fell out drop by drop. The man was stunned for a moment and was about to reach out to grab Tang Wan. However, the next second, Tang Wan escaped from his confinement like a loach and kicked his wrist. The click sound is the sound of a silenced pistol going off. The window of pen was smashed, and the flying glass scratched the side of Tang Wan's face, but she didn't care. He just quickly grabbed the pistol on the ground, loaded it immediately, and pointed it at the man. At the same time, the man's spare pistol was pressed against Tang Wan's temple. He chuckled, not taking the injury on his hand seriously, and said to Tang Wan, "You did it on purpose. You deliberately made me think you were really weak. How cruel, you can actually kill yourself." There was no expression on Tang Wan's face, even his expression was indifferent. At an age when others could not control their emotions, she calmly raised her pistol and pointed it at her enemy. The man wore a mask on his face, with only his eyes exposed. His tone can even be considered friendly, and he always compliments him, "You are really talented. If you had grown up next to me, I would probably have been your godfather. It's such a waste of your talent in such a stable environment. You should come to us. You will have a different life. Exciting and thrilling life is more suitable for you." His voice had a bewitching tone, but Tang Wan remained indifferent. Her hands did not tremble. Aim firmly at the man's throat. While they were in a stalemate, the sound of wheels sliding sounded on the ground. Tang Wan's eyes flickered and her heartbeat slowed down a beat. "No, it shouldn't be, my father should be on another floor." Tang Wan remembered that he had changed the password lock of the villa, and Sci-fi could not get out. However, the man in front of him seemed to have seen something funny, and he laughed so hard. "Ha ha ha, your father has seen how bad you are." Tang Wan never looked back. She can never look back. She wants. Tang Tang. Tang Wan's hand trembled slightly. "Tang Tang, come back. You cannot kill." Tang Wan stubbornly did not turn his head, and even pointed his pistol forward. She can kill him. She's going to kill him. Kill him. Kill him. There was a bang, an explosion sounded, and a burning smell was captured by Tang Wan. She sniffed and smelled the smell of sulfur in the air. However, this moment of distraction was caught by the man in front of him, and he pressed the trigger. A figure pressed down on Tang Wan and rolled her around several times. In the smell of sulfur, there was the smell of blood that made Tang Wan panic. Almost instantly, Tang Wan crawled out of Si Huai's arms, looked at the wounds on Si Huai's body, gritted his teeth, raised his arm, and pointed it in the direction just now. But the man has long since disappeared. Fire, to be ignited. Even heavy rain cannot extinguish the fire stained with gasoline. Ahem. Tang Wan tore off 2 strips of cloth from his clothes, ran to the nearest bathroom to wet his handkerchief, then covered his and Si Huai's noses, and started running outside. For the first time, she felt regret in her heart. If I had been less impulsive and more patient when I saw them showing off their tricks, would my father not have been injured? If only I could endure it a little longer. Again, Tang Wan clenched his teeth tightly, but tears fell from his eyes. Fell to the hot floor like a broken flower. Si Huai wiped Tang Wan's eyes with his cold hands. He gave all his tenderness to the dead wife and their only daughter. The voice was weak but extremely gentle. Why are you crying? Tang Tang, you can't kill anyone. Don't shoot casually, and don't aim at others casually. Don't open this mouth. If you do it once, there will be a second time, and you will never be able to return to a peaceful life. Don't listen to what he says, you are the most obedient and best Zizai. Everyone loves you very much, don't listen to his nonsense. Tang Wan heard Si Huai's voice. His voice became quieter and quieter, and was about to be drowned by the sound of rain. Tang Wan was struggling to walk on the ground with Si Huai on his back, but Si Huai's legs were still on the ground, dragging 2 marks. Si Huai seemed to feel no pain and said to Tang Wan, "Put me down." Tang Wan shook his head and stubbornly crawled to the door on his hands and knees. Don't want. She failed to protect her mother, let alone let her father die in the fire because of her. Tang Tang, I'm really happy that my child is you. I originally wanted to grow up with you. Do not talk. Stop talking. Tang Wan deceived herself and didn't want to hear Si Huai's voice, which seemed to be announcing the funeral arrangements. The painful pain of burning blood blisters on her palms on the hot ground was the sobering agent at this moment, allowing her to move on. It's my fault for not cleaning this place up. Here. No, Tang Wan squeezed out one word from his throat, interrupting Si Huai's voice. Her voice was extremely hoarse, accompanied by extreme pain, burning in the fire. No, do not want. Go, go, go out. I don't want to lose my loved ones again. Don't leave me behind. When Tang Wan climbed to the door, Tang Wan found that the door was locked. She slapped the door again and again, shouting weakly, "Open, open the door. Cough cough, cough cough, open, open the door." Si Huai hugged Tang Wan with all his strength and used his body to resist the blazing heat waves. Tang Tang can talk. She can talk. Tang Wan saw the fire burning Si Huai's body. She struggled to jump out and put out the fire with her own body. No no. Dad, Dad. Dad, we will go out. Si Huai looked at Tang Wan with complicated eyes, as if he wanted to remember Tang Wan's appearance in his mind. Then he stood up from the ground with all his strength. Shaking legs supported his weak body, raised his hand, and pressed the final button. His body had unprecedented strength, like a brave and fearless warrior. The next second, Tang Wan was pushed out by him. But he closed his eyes and fell into the sea of fire. No. Tang Wan struggled to crawl back. However, the iron frame on the door fell down and hit the ground hard, blocking the last exit. The little Tang Wan used her hands and feet, regardless of the high temperature and the pain of being stabbed by the iron, and wanted to return to the sea of fire. Dad. Dad. In just a few seconds, Tang Wan spoke more and more clearly. Her voice shattered into glass shards and turned into the sharpest weapon in the world, piercing herself hard. She paid an unbearable price for her recklessness and ignorance. Don't leave me here. Dad, I don't want to live alone. Please, don't leave me. The little mute's life was stolen, and the wealthy boss comes to spoil him. Author, do you want to eat rabbit head? Chapter 234. Chapter 234 Baby, I love you. Tang Wan's voice was still hoarse, and she was surrounded by a sea of high-temperature fire. She stubbornly stretched out her hand and pulled at the surrounding gravel, trying to rescue Sci-fi inside. Regret is like churning sea water, hitting a rickety boat and about to capsize it. Tang Wan has never had such a regretful moment. If only I were less impulsive and thought more about it. They clearly showed their flaws and did it on purpose. Why am I not as cautious as usual? She is usually so careful and meticulous, why is she so impulsive today? Tang Wan thought this while pulling the door frame. Since those people dared to set fire at this time, the fire extinguishing device of this villa has probably been cleared. She won't be able to find fire extinguishers anytime soon. Tang Wan is so sane on weekdays, but now he is so panicked. The heavy rain hit her thin shoulders, almost crushing her. Rain and tears slid down Tang Wan's cheeks, looking extremely embarrassed. Tang Wan's hands had lost all feeling. She was just numb, digging into the hot stones with obsession. To bring father out. Can't let him stay here. Behind her, there was lightning and thunder, and the lightning illuminated the darkness one after another. At this moment, the rain on Tang Wan's head suddenly disappeared, and someone opened an umbrella for her. A slightly helpless voice sounded, falling on Tang Wan's ears, which was more obvious than the thunder behind him. Tang Tang, let me do it. As he spoke, he squatted down, put the umbrella in his hand aside, took Tang Wan's palm, and then stretched out his hand to dig up the gravel on Tang Wan's behalf. Many men in black came from behind him. They looked at the earth in front of them and turned their heads unbearably. It's so tragic. In such a big fire, everyone should have been burned. Most of the time, it's more bad than good. But in this case, they would definitely not say it out loud. They would just drive the truck to dig out the villa in silence. It also carried the scent of mint from Fu Wenzi's body, dispersing the smell of sulfur around him. The rain was hitting the umbrella, making it difficult for Tang Wan to hear Fu Wenzi's voice clearly, but he could only vaguely hear what he said. I will always be there. I won't let go of your hand. Tang Wan heard this and seemed to wake up from a dream. He turned around and grabbed Fu Wenzi's hand. He said hoarsely in a crying voice, help me. Fu Wenzi heard Tang Wan speak, but there was not much surprise on his face, as if he had known about it for a long time. He nodded, then squatted down and wiped Tang Wan's face with his cold hands. That beautiful and delicate face now looks like a little kitten that has fallen into the water, extremely helpless. Fu Wenzi didn't like Tang Wan's expression. Looking so sad made him very uncomfortable. Fu Wenzi's fingers unconsciously increased their strength, leaving a red mark on Tang Wan's face. Looking even more pitiful. Suddenly, Fu Wenzi put the hat on his coat on Tang Wan, covering Tang Wan's face. Then he said softly, don't worry, I will bring Uncle Si out. The rain was so heavy that Tang Wan felt a little uneasy. At this moment, the bodyguard who was already searching suddenly shouted, found it? Still breathing. Upon hearing this, Tang Wan struggled to stand up from the ground, but his vision went dark, and he finally couldn't hold on and fainted. Just before she fell into coma, she was still clutching Fu Wenzi's clothes tightly, as if grasping a life-saving straw. Fu Wenzi hugged Tang Wan and did not let her fall to the ground. He carefully adjusted the position of his arm and said, have a good rest and leave the rest to me. Tang Wan cannot remember clearly what happened next, nor does he know what happened next. Tang Wan has not dreamed of a peaceful past for a long time. After recovering her memory, she never had such warm dreams again. Today, Tang Wan dreamed of her mother who was not injured yet. She was hugging herself, humming a lullaby, and coaxing herself to sleep. Sleep, sleep, my dear baby. Sleep, sleep, my dear baby. You will always be my mother's good baby. There are cicadas chirping on the branches outside, and it sounds like midsummer. Tang Wan's mother's face has always been blurry in her memory, but today, it is particularly clear. Furthermore, my mother had undergone plastic surgery in order to do the task, but now, her face has become her original appearance. It is a bright and beautiful appearance. The corners of his eyes are curved, like a pool of spring water. Tang Wan looked at her mother in a daze, and subconsciously reached out to hug her. But when he opened his mouth, he could only make the sound of ah as a cub. Mom took Tang Wan's hand, shook it gently, and said, "The baby is so enthusiastic. Do you miss your dad? He will be here soon." As he spoke, he kissed Tang Wan's head hard and rubbed Tang Wan's face. "Ah, the baby smells like milk, hee hee." Tang Wan opened his round eyes and looked at her unblinkingly. His cute look made people's hearts melt. At this moment, there was the sound of the door opening. Mom immediately picked up Tang Wan and walked out the door, still muttering, "Why are you back so early today? Baby, let's go pick up Daddy." "Dad?" Tang Wan blinked. Tang Wan felt as if he had forgotten something. But soon, Tang Wan could only see his parents in front of him. Dad seemed to have rushed back from a very far away place. He walked directly to his mother, kissed the side of her face, and hugged himself. Tang Wan waved her two little hands and became a sandwich biscuit between her parents. I didn't feel uncomfortable, I even felt a sense of security that I had never felt before. After becoming a child, Tang Wan's brain didn't seem to work that well anymore, and he just stayed obediently in the arms of his parents. It's just strange. Tang Wan always feels that Dad shouldn't be like this. Daddy's legs should. What should it be? Tang Wan doesn't remember. Just as Tang Wan was thinking, she heard her father speak. "Tang Tang, it's time for us to go." Tang Wan looked at his father blankly, and his appearance became clear in front of Tang Wan. She heard her father say, "There are still many people waiting for us, we have to leave." Tang Wan stretched out her hand, subconsciously trying to grab her mother, but her mother stretched out her hand, spread Tang Wan's fingers apart one by one, and said to Tang Wan, "Baby, there is still a long way to go, you have to grow up well. Mom loves you very much. In the future, there will be many people who will love you. Baby." Tang Wan watched her mother's mouth open and close, then turned around and wanted to return to her mother's arms. However, her mother pushed Tang Wan away and pushed her into Sci-fi's arms. "Let's go back. I love you." The little mute's life was stolen, and the wealthy boss comes to spoil him. Author, do you want to eat rabbit head? Chapter 235. Chapter 235. That's not what you said at the beginning. Tang Wan's memory gradually returned. That body like a baby suddenly grew up and turned into what she looked like in reality. Tang Wan and his father stood at the door, looking at their mother in the room, with dryness in their voices. "Mother, I have grown up. I made a lot of friends, I got good grades, and I became the president of the student union. I also won a lot of trophies and achieved a lot of victories. I have been abroad many times and seen many different scenery. I left that small place, but I did not bring you back. I am very good, they all say I am very good. Mom, I miss you very much. Mom, would you be proud of me? I want to be like you, I want to walk along your life." Tang Wan didn't finish the last half of the sentence. However, Tang Wan heard a different answer from her mother in her dream this time. She originally thought that this was just the mother in her memory, and no matter what she said, her mother would not respond to her. But she heard her mother's voice. Mom said, "No matter whether you have achieved those results or not, In mom's eyes you are the best baby in the world. You are a gift from God to my mother. She will never judge your importance in her heart because of those labels and comments. Every life is unique. You don't need to copy me or imitate me, they will love you. I have never felt dissatisfied because of you, baby. No matter you are ordinary or outstanding, mom will always love you. Tangwan looked at her mother, who said these words, and wanted to rush over and hug her. What she knows, she has always known. She has the best mother in the world. Baby, just be yourself. You are the best baby in the world, and you deserve all the good things. Everyone should be like this. Sci-fi hugged Tangwan, turned around and was about to leave. However, he saw the figure who had been standing in the room, looking at him with a smile on his face. She opened her mouth, but there was no sound, but Sci-fi understood what she said. She says, "Thanks for your hard work. I'm really sorry for leaving you here, I've made you feel wronged." Sci-fi wanted to see more clearly, but his lover's figure had disappeared. Sci-fi hugged Tangwan and left here all the way. Then the door behind him was closed. Okay, it's stabilized. If you are not in good health, don't force yourself to go out in the rain and rescue people from the fire. How can such a young child be allowed to go into the fire by herself? You parents don't pay attention either. Her hand is burned now and it will take a long time to recover. Please be careful not to let her touch the water. The wound will be very itchy when it heals. Remember not to let her scratch the wound, otherwise it will get worse. Spicy food and seafood are not allowed to her. In addition, you should not eat foods that are too stimulating during this period. The doctor can't wait to read all these precautions to these parents who overindulge their children. However, seeing the expressions on the faces of these parents, he felt that maybe he was overthinking, and maybe it was just the naughty child that caused this situation. But when the doctor's eyes fell on the child lying on the hospital bed, he felt that such a well-behaved child should not be considered a bear. This place is relatively remote, so the doctor did not recognize that the group of people standing around him were all famous big shots. On the contrary, the doctor kindly explained the precautions, and everyone listened attentively without interrupting him. When the doctor finally finished speaking, they turned their heads to the bed. Lulin, who was standing aside, said angrily, "You are pretending to sleep with your eyes closed. Get up soon. Do you think I didn't see your eyelids move just now?" Tangwan slowly opened his eyes. Just now he couldn't see clearly, but now he saw the expression on Lulin's face. Lulin has always been delicate, and he cares very much about his external image, but now he lets the stubble hang on his chin without taking care of it. Even under his eyes, there were dark circles, which showed that he had not rested well. Tangwan opened his mouth and wanted to ask about Sci-fi, but was interrupted by Lulin. "Okay, stop talking, your voice is not healed yet. I know you can speak now. Sci-fi is in the next ward. You two need to rest. I don't know what dreams you two had. Both of you shed tears in your dreams." At this point, Lulin trembled, as if he was shaking off the goosebumps on his body. "This is the first time I've seen such a big man cry like this. The pillow is wet." Tangwan thought of the scene in the dream and felt that it was normal for her father to cry. After all, from the brief time that her mother and father got together, Tangwan vaguely realized that her father might be the little crying bag in her parents' relationship. Literally. But Tangwan still wanted to save some face for his father, so he prepared to keep this discovery in his heart. Unexpectedly, Lulin said the matter directly in his next sentence. "But it's normal. When he was with that female classmate before, he always followed her behind, like a little girl." Tangwan thought for a while and decided not to speak. Lulin is in a bad mood now, so he must have a channel to vent. Otherwise, people will get frustrated. Tangwan realized that what he had done frightened Lulin. So she let Lulin say these words beside her. At this moment, Lulin suddenly hugged Tangwan and sighed, "You scared me to death." Tang Wan wanted to raise her hand to give Lu Lin a hug. However, when she raised her hand, what she saw was her own hand that was bandaged like a mummy, and she put it down silently. I am powerless and cannot hold it. Tang Wan slowly raised his head, looked at the tired Lu Lin, opened his mouth, and said in a hoarse voice, "Brother Lu Lin, I'm sorry." Lu Lin was slightly stunned. Instead of looking at Tang Wan, he hugged her tighter. The hug was so tight that Tang Wan couldn't breathe. She struggled and said again, "Where is brother's Hizzy?" Lu Lin's voice was a little dull, "He's fine, he's gone to clean up the mess." Tang Wan breathed a sigh of relief. At this moment, Lu Lin suddenly said, "Something's wrong." Tang Wan? If you call that brat Fu Wenzi brother, am I not a generation shorter than Pei Yunzhe? Tang Wan was unusually speechless. Are you just realizing this now? Brother Lu Lin, that's not what you said when Lu Ziyi became his little nephew. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The little mute's life was stolen, and the wealthy boss comes to spoil him. Author, do you want to eat rabbit head? Chapter 236. Chapter 236 Puppy love is not allowed. Lu Lin didn't care what Tang Wan was thinking at this time, he just wanted to spend a good time with the little boy. This little cub is too courageous. He has listened to what Fu Wenzi said. That means you were lucky this time. What if you don't have such good luck next time? Lu Lin didn't dare to think about whether Grandma Si would still have the strength to support the entire Si family if Tang Tang and Si Hui were gone at the same time. There are only 3 of them. The Si family is related to important things. Like the Shui family, it is a family that serves the country. If this falls... Lu Lin shook his head, feeling a little afraid in his heart. If the Si family falls, it will probably be in shock for a while. Tang Wan's voice was still hoarse, but for some reason, Lu Lin felt as if Tang Wan had put down a heavy burden, and his whole state was much more relaxed than before. Brother, I want to see my father. Lu Lin felt a little disgusted. He pursed his lips and finally decided not to be acquainted with an injured old man. Although Si Hui is about the same age as him, they are far behind in Tangwan. However, when Lu Lin thought about Si Hui's injury, he felt frightened. But the ferocious expression on Si Hui's face made him look more humane, not so cold. Lu Lin was thinking this as he walked over with Tang Wan in his arms. On the way, Tang Wan also asked Fu Wenzi about his situation. Heavy rain combined with fire can easily lead to accidents. However, Lu Lin just said casually, if you are worried about others, take care of yourself first. If you have small arms and legs, you dare to do everything by yourself. Lu Lin kept silent about why Fu Wenzi was able to find Tang Wan, nor did he discuss why Tang Wan went abroad with Si Hui in an abnormal manner. He knew that the 2 children had their own secrets, and sometimes adults couldn't get too involved, otherwise it would make things extra complicated. But he couldn't help but say, that brat may have put some kind of tracker on you. Remember to go back and talk to him. There is still a need for some distance between friends. Tang Wan shook his head and explained to Fu Wenzi, it was not the locator he installed. I made an agreement with him a long time ago. Tang Wan thought of the 3-part agreement between himself and Fu Wenzi that night 3 years ago. He lowered his lips and did not explain it again. But Tang Wan's appearance made Lu Lin think too much. Lu Lin? His eyes widened, and his voice sounded a little sincere due to surprise. Tang Tang, have you decided to choose that scheming brat from now on? He has a dark heart and is ruthless. Do you want to stop thinking about it? Although our Lu Ziyi is stupid, he is a simple person. Whatever you say in the future, according to Lu Ziyi's IQ, he will be fooled. If you choose that brat Fu Wenzi, you will have to travel to many more places during the New Year and holidays, which will be very tiring. He talked a lot and looked really nervous. Tang Wan was a little overwhelmed by what he said. But soon, Tang Wan understood what Lu Lin meant, and also realized that Lu Lin seemed to have misunderstood his words. He patted the back of Lu Lin's hand to calm Lu Lin's mood and said, "It's not what you think." "What does that mean?" Tang Wan was silent for a while, condensed those things, and explained, "It's because the people involved are from abroad. It's inconvenient for the Si family and it's not convenient for the Lu family, but it's very convenient for the Fu family. Before I left the country this time, Zhi had been following me and he never left. Not safe." During this period, Tang Wan always felt like someone was staring at her, which made her a little uncomfortable. By coincidence, Tang Wan found out that Sujiajia's positioning device, which had been turned off 3 years ago, had now been turned on again, and the flashing location was still on the same coast as before. Of course, Tang Wan would not naively think that the device turned on again because it was charged, or because they found the plug. She knew this was a hint and a bait. The people in the dark are also waiting for Tang Wan to bite the hook. At this moment, Si suddenly mentioned that he wanted to go out for fun, which made Tang Wan think of some very coincidental things. It seemed that every time the positioning system on Sujiajia's hand responded, she would be faced with going out or engaging in other activities. This has to make Tang Wan suspect that those people seem to have some channels to predict the future. She thought of what Sujiajia said before like a madman, and felt that the breakthrough might still be with Sujiajia. So he and Si walked out. As expected, Tang Wan realized as soon as he landed on the island that the island had been tampered with. First, a mother fan came to me for an autograph and got my own autograph. Then Si was taken into the villa again and did not come out. And what I saw on the opposite island was suspected to be an acquaintance. Finally, there is the room where my mother lived. Everything seems to be just right and well prepared. In fact, they are all hints. They are about to take action. Tang Wan felt vaguely familiar with this style of behavior. The other party seems to know me very well, and I also feel that this kind of behavior seems familiar, as if I have met him somewhere. Tang Wan subconsciously began to fall into her own thoughts, but she soon awoke. Instead of continuing to be immersed in my own little world, I am more concerned about the people around me. Even Lu Lin beside her was a little surprised. He thought that Tang Wan would not react until he sent Tang Wandu to Si's ward, but he did not expect to recover so quickly. It's really different. When they arrived at the door of the ward, they found that the ward was not closed, but a gap was left, and figures one large and one small could be vaguely seen inside. Lu Lin just wanted to open the door and walk in but was stopped by Tang Wan. Tang Wan pulled Lu Lin's sleeves and asked him to squat down, sticking to the corner like a thief and eavesdropping on their conversation. The big one and the small one inside all happened to be known to Tang Wan. One is Si on the hospital bed, and the other is Fu Wenzi. Tang Wan heard Fu Wenzi open his mouth and say, "I want to take Tang Tang away." Tang Wan? No. Lu Lin couldn't sit still after hearing this, and shouted directly, interrupting Fu Wenzi's next words of tiger and wolf. "Where do you want to take Tang Tang? Tang Tang belongs to our family. It's useless to talk to Si, but I won't agree to it even if you talk to me." At this point, Lu Lin glanced at Fu Wenzi up and down, his disgust was palpable, and he muttered something in a low voice. Puppy love is not allowed. The little mute's life was stolen, and the wealthy boss comes to spoil him. Author, do you want to eat rabbit head? Chapter 237. Chapter 237. She could have been safe and smooth. Puppy love? What is puppy love? As soon as Lu Lin said these words, 2 pairs of eyes of the 3 people present looked at him, except Fu Wenzi. Tang Wan sighed, feeling that his brother really thought too much. She has no idea about love and probably never will in the future. It's just that when Lu Lin said this now, he really thought too highly of himself, so he said, "Brother, I am only 10 years old now." Fu Wenzi on the side also added slowly, "I am only 13 years old." Even Siy, who had just woken up, felt that what Lu Lin said was a bit ridiculous, and couldn't help but said, "I think you are really dizzy." Lu Lin also reacted at this time. It seemed that he had misunderstood something. But there is no way. He has been very nervous when facing Tang Wan these years. After all, he raised Tang Wan as his biological sister. Which brother wants his precious sister to be by a pig? Even a high-quality pig will not work. Fu Wenzi looked at Lu Lin's angry eyes, with his signature smile still on his face, and said, "I just found out in this incident that there are a lot of informants around us, so I propose to bring Tang Tang with me. The thought of leaving this place. This place is not safe for Tang Tang." However, Tang Wan refused. "No, I want to be here. This is the heart of the motherland and the safest place." Of course, there are some reasons that Tang Wan did not say. She wants to stay with her relatives here instead of leaving here again to go far away. Human life is limited, and no one knows who will come first, tomorrow or the accident. Fu Wenzi just said it casually and had no intention of taking Tang Wan away. "I want to test the bottom line of both parties, but it seems that leaving this road is absolutely impossible." Fu Wenzi rubbed his fingers for a moment without speaking. But his eyes kept falling on Tang Wan, searching for her subconsciously. Tang Wan patted the back of Lu Lin's hand, jumped out of his arms, and said in a weak voice, "Can you wait for me outside? I have something to tell Dad." "Don't you want me to hear it?" Lu Lin raised his eyebrows. His tone was a little surprised, and a little bit easily detectable. However, Tang Wan just nodded, very cold and ruthless. Lu Lin could only look at Fu Wenzi with a bad face, and picked up Fu Wenzi, who still wanted to stay here, and then dragged him out with him. In an instant, only Tang Wan and Siy were left in this ward. Tang Wan tiptoed to Siy's side and looked at the bandages all over his body. She had been pretending to be calm. She couldn't hold on anymore and spoke with a cry in her voice. "I'm sorry, Dad." Siy shook his head, and his voice was gentler than ever before. "It doesn't matter. It's Dad who's late." Tang Wan suddenly opened his eyes wide when he heard Siy's words and looked at Siy in disbelief. She opened her mouth and said hesitantly, Have you seen Mom too?" Siy frowned and remained silent. Tang Wan confirmed his answer, but felt that this matter could not be explained scientifically. But she didn't want to get into it. Siy suddenly spoke, "Can you tell me when you can speak?" Tang Wan was silent for a moment, and finally started from the beginning. There was no problem with Tang Wan's voice from the beginning. Tang Wan could not speak at first because of psychological reasons. Her mother's last words to her always flashed before her eyes, that she should forget that she could make a sound, and she could not let the sound take away her life. It was precisely because of this suggestion that she lost the ability to speak. At that time, he was still young and the stimulation from the outside was too great, which made him completely close his perception. So the state of aphasia is even more serious. But since Tang Wan's memories began to return, her symptoms were actually gradually improving. But Tang Wan still did not show that he could speak. Because, she found that her life might not be peaceful. Having a voice means that once you are in danger, you can shout for help, and the bad guys will not attack you rashly. In this way, Tang Wan has lost his role as a perfect bait. So she hid her ability to speak and pretended to be mute. It has been pretending for 3 years. This time, he and Fu Wenzi finally found their clues through their investigation, so they wanted to make a desperate move to catch their tail. As long as this matter is resolved, their future lives will no longer be full of danger, but now it seems that they have slipped away again. My preparations are not sufficient, and I do not know enough about how bad they are. You are not mature enough, so you make people around you hurt? Tang Wan blames himself very much. But Sci-fi said, "You are very powerful." Tang Wan's eyes met Sci-fi's. As if asking, really? Are you really that good? Sci-fi is a very reserved person. Even after he met Tang Wan, he rarely directly praised Tang Wan for doing well or doing the right thing. But, maybe they dreamed of their most beloved person, so everyone became much gentler. The barriers between each other seemed to have faded even more in that dream. They can finally sit down and talk like an ordinary father and daughter. Sci noticed the expectation in Tang Wan's eyes and said with certainty, "It's amazing. When I was your age, I would never have imagined that I could fight them alone. I was very carefree at that time and didn't think so much at all. I only grew up later." Tang Wan didn't know how much hardship Sci had to suffer through his understatement, but he could get a glimpse of his father from the clues in his daily life. "My father is a little crybaby. His growth was probably painful, so he subconsciously turned the corners of his mouth downward, feeling very unhappy." Suddenly, a pair of large, mummy-like hands were placed on Tang Wan's head, and he rubbed it gently, sighing, "Tang Tang has been an adult since she was very young. I'm sorry for making you grow up so quickly." Tang Wan blinked her eyes, feeling a little sore. She thought she had long been used to it. "I am used to being a little adult, and I am also used to thinking of thoughtful solutions." She is using her own way to find ways to make herself feel safe in this boundless world. She had feelings and a backer before, which was given by Lulin. Now, the feeling of having a child is given by the father and mother. We are all very nice people. If there were no bad people in the world, she would have been safe and smooth. The little mute's life was stolen, and the wealthy boss comes to spoil him. Author, do you want to eat rabbit head? Chapter 238. Chapter 238. Did you take the wrong medicine? The relationship between father and daughter is better than before. Neither Lulin nor Fu Wenzi left at the door, they just stood in the corridor, blowing in the wind. Lulin put his hands on the railing and glanced at Fu Wenzi, who was standing next to him. His tone was not as gentle as when he spoke to Tang Wan. The first thing he said was, "I hope this won't happen again." Before Fu Wenzi could answer, he heard Lulin say again, "Didn't your father step forward to stop you before you did these dangerous things?" Fu Wenzi thought about it for a while, but the smile on his face didn't change much, but what he said was measured and precise, "My father is trying to please my mother during this time and is not free. Besides, I can make my own decision on this little matter." "Is this a trivial matter?" Lulin repeated Fu Wenzi's words, with a hint of anger in his tone. "Such a dangerous thing, is it just a trivial matter that fell into your mouth? As long as you are not careful in this matter, your life and Tang Tang's life may be in danger, and even Sci will let you do whatever you want." Fu Wenzi heard him mention other people's names and quickly shook his head. "Uncle Siwei doesn't know about our plan. He was innocently implicated." Lulin didn't feel much better after hearing Fu Wenzi say such words. These two children were so courageous that they dared to do anything alone. They will suffer a big loss sooner or later if they don't know the heights of the world. Thinking of this, Lulin wanted to say something. When he saw some injuries on Fu Wenzi's hands, he swallowed his blaming words and asked, "Did the doctor tell you how long it will take for your injuries to heal?" Fu Wenzi glanced at Lulin in surprise. He knew that Tang Wan, his nominal brother, did not like him. So Fu Wenzi did not expect that Lulin would suddenly express concern for him. But Fu Wenzi did not show such surprise. He just smiled and said, "Brother Lulin, don't worry. It's just some superficial injuries and they will be fine soon." Lulin said angrily, "I'm not worried about you, I just don't want you to seek comfort from Tang Tang through such a wound." Fu Wenzi rubbed the wound and smiled without saying a word. Of course he would not miss such a good opportunity to ask for benefits in front of Tang Wan. There is no need to say such words in front of Lulin. However, Fu Wenzi did not deny it. After realizing this, Lu Lin opened his eyes wide and said with a slightly distorted voice, "Do you really think so? How did I find you so fragile before?" Fu Wenzi is of course not fragile anymore, he just hopes that his efforts will be rewarded. Being able to make use of all the resources he has is just something he has learned since he was a child. Such a good opportunity, of course, Fu Wenzi would not let it go. Soon after the father and daughter in the ward finished talking about their matters, Tang Guan opened the door and walked out. Lu Lin subconsciously wanted to walk to Tang Guan's side, but he found that someone was one step faster than him. Fu Wenzi walked up to Tang Guan first, raised his injured hand and put it under Tang Guan's side, looking unusually pitiful. The first sentence was, "Tang Tang, I was injured too, why didn't you ask me?" Tang Guan was slightly stunned and looked at Fu Wenzi in confusion. Fu Wenzi took the wrong medicine? How could you say such a thing? I'm sorry, I'm feeling a bit unwell today, so I'll only update one chapter. Please take a day, and I'll be back to normal tomorrow. I love you all. End of this chapter. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The little mute's life was stolen, and the wealthy boss comes to spoil him. Author, do you want to eat rabbit head? Chapter 239. Chapter 239. It sounds like I am worrying in vain. However, there was no change in Fu Wenzi's face when he said such coquettish words. It seemed that he had just said a plain, normal complaint. But Tang Guan thought that she could do such a thing only because of Fu Wenzi's support and help, so she still spoke. Then your wound still hurts? Fu Wenzi heard Tang Guan's question as he wished. He nodded, the smile on his face remained unchanged, but his tone became a little more aggrieved. It hurts. That pitiful look fell into Tang Guan's eyes, and he was actually still weak. But weak? Will Fu Wenzi be weak? Tang Guan didn't believe it, but Fu Wenzi looked a little unusual. Cough cough cough. At this moment, Lu Lin, who was standing beside them, suddenly coughed several times, interrupting Tang Guan and Fu Wenzi's movements. His tone was a bit dissatisfied. It's not appropriate for you to bully our Tang Tang like this in front of me. It's just your injury, and it will heal if you don't pay more attention. He didn't speak when he heard it, but just rubbed his fingers back and forth, as if wiping the blood between his palms. He did not give his attention to Lu Lin, who was standing next to him. Instead, he and Tang Guan continued to talk. So, Tang Tang, do you want to comfort me? Although Tang Guan knew that Fu Wenzi's weak look was just an act, he still reached out and held Fu Wenzi's palm out of the idea of friends taking care of each other, and rubbed it vigorously. Then he put his hands in front of his mouth, breathed out gently, and said a few soft words in his voice that had not yet adapted. Hoo hoo, it hurts to fly. Lu Lin looked at Tang Guan and Fu Wenzi's actions and felt a bit sour in his teeth. He turned his head, not wanting to see the scene in front of him. But he didn't say anything to stop him. After all, Fu Wenzi did play a big role in this matter, and he also protected Tang Guan at the most dangerous time. As Tang Guan moved, the expression on Fu Wenzi's face became more and more real. Even Lu Lin had to admit that after getting used to seeing the numb smile on Fu Wenzi's face, seeing his sincere smile now makes him feel a little brighter. It turns out that this is the real Fu Wenzi, but he hides himself on weekdays and is only seen by Tang Guan. For a moment, Lu Lin couldn't tell whether Tang Guan was forced to stay by Fu Wenzi's side during the friendship between Tang Guan and Fu Wenzi, or whether Fu Wenzi needed Tang Guan. Or maybe they are essentially the same. Everything in the world has two sides. Perhaps Fu Wenzi, who was indifferent in front of others, was the safest existence in the world in front of Tang Guan. He is the guardian of Tang Guan, a knight, and indispensable. Tang Wan is also tolerating Fu Wenzi with a tolerant attitude that she does not show to others. It is quite incredible that the two children are treating each other in their own unique way, and they actually complement each other so well and tolerate each other. This is particularly valuable in their eyes. Everyone wants to be favored, but there are very few people who can get it in this world. They are mutually lucky and perfect for each other. Thinking of this, Lu Lin subconsciously bit his lip with his teeth, still feeling a little unhappy. It's like the cabbage that I worked so hard to raise, and now it's being taken away with the pot and flowers. But it is obvious that they are only in their teens now. Speaking out, it sounds like I am worrying about things in vain. Sorry, dear friends, I had to go out for something unexpectedly today, and it was a little too late to come back. I'm a little busy this May Day. Something happened at home. I'm really sorry. The previous article may not be well written, so I will make some minor edits. I'm sorry, thank you for your continued tolerance. End of this chapter. The little mute's life was stolen, and the wealthy boss comes to spoil him. Author, do you want to eat rabbit head? Chapter 240. Chapter 240 Teaching and Educating People. Thinking of this, Lu Lin became more and more irritable. But he soon realized something. Tang Tang is actually very slow when it comes to love. It should be said that for children like them who have not experienced the baptism of emotions, they cannot actually tell the difference between love and friendship. As long as no one points them out, they can live their whole lives knowing nothing. Don't ask Lu Lin how he knew this. Fu Wenzi's father, President Fu, is a good example. It was obviously a mutual love relationship, but Mr. Fu turned it into a violent and sadomasochistic love affair where you chase each other. Of course, Lu Lin would definitely not be able to let Fu Wenzi's feelings for Tang Wan turn into robbery and sadomasochistic love. After all, once such a sign appears, Tang Wan may not need to take any action himself. People around Tang Wan will strangle Fu Wenzi to death. Lu Lin actually laughed out loud when he thought of this, which looked a bit weird. Tang Wan turned to look at him with some confusion, as if she didn't understand what he was laughing at. But Lu Lin just touched Tang Wan's head, looked at Fu Wenzi thoughtfully, and said, "It's nothing, I just remembered some happy things." Tang Wan has never been one to ask questions, so he just nodded without going into details. As for Fu Wenzi, he saw clearly the other emotions behind this strange expression. Fu Wenzi felt the emotion behind this expression, and suddenly felt a chill. I don't know why it always makes him feel a little uncomfortable. However, Fu Wenzi never made a fuss in front of Tang Wan, so he didn't show it and just kept silently vigilant. This matter ended up being nothing, and no one mentioned it. The days in the hospital were very boring. Tang Wan actively cooperated with the doctors and wasted no time in being discharged from the hospital. Although she didn't need to stay in the hospital, her injuries were not all healed and she still had to wear a plaster. As for waiting for Tang Wan to return to school, everyone looked at the plaster on Tang Wan's body and did not dare to approach Tang Wan, for fear that it would hurt her if they touched her injury. The student unions of the junior high school and primary school are completely integrated. Tang Wan is also the first president of Lingyuan College since its opening to manage both the junior high school and primary school student unions. In the past, no one would have thought that someone could hold two positions across departments. How incredible! Being able to become the president of the student union at any age shows that the student is good enough, not to mention that he can take on multiple roles. This is not as simple as the 1+1 formula. She must be almost twice as good. At the opening ceremony of the new semester, Tang Wan, as the president of the student union of the primary school and junior high school, took the lead in speaking on the podium. In the past, his speech was projected on the screen, but this time, Tang Wan adjusted the microphone in front of him and recited the speech calmly. She didn't seem nervous at all, and she was used to facing so many eyes. "Dear teacher, Dear classmates, good morning everyone. At first, the teachers thought that the students in the junior high school would resist. After all, the person who made such a decision was their former president and did not go through multiple votes. It was decided privately. I didn't expect that the students in the junior high school would accept this very well and not have any more emotions. On the contrary, they were even a little happy to hear about Tang Wan's appointment. There was a new teacher who had not heard of Tang Wan's previous deeds and murmured to himself, "This is really strange. Usually, aren't these young masters and ladies with high aspirations? How come you are so honest when you see this little doubting?" The old teacher standing next to him glanced at him and kindly told him, "They say such things in front of these children. In front of these children, the child king is the real one, someone worthy of their support. The majesty of ordinary school teachers is actually nothing in their eyes. There are still many things to learn, but don't make such arrogant remarks in front of them." The young teacher curled his lips in disapproval, and then focused his gaze on the little bean curd. What can such a child do well? It's nothing more than that the family background is much better than that of other students, that's why they are so scared. Other than that, he really couldn't figure out how such a young child could be respected by his junior high school classmates. It would be really ridiculous if it was really because her abilities were extraordinary. The most indispensable thing in this school is genius. Whether it is piled up with money or time, those who can stand out among them are simply rare. He didn't want to believe that such a young child in this school was a genius among geniuses, and he was even less willing to admit that he had made a mistake. So the contempt in his eyes fell on the old teacher's eyes. The old teacher looked at such a shameless young man and shook his head, without further advice. To live well in this school is not only something that the children should learn, but also what the teachers need to learn. They are a two-way choice and a mutual restriction. Obviously, this young teacher has not experienced severe beatings from society, and he does not know that he is likely to get nothing here. The old teacher did not give him any more attention. Instead, he concentrated on looking at Tang Wan, who was giving a speech under the national flag. He was also proud of treating such a well-behaved, lovely, and outstanding child. Tang Wan is the signature school of this school, because their enrollment rate with Tang Wan is much higher than before. This is all thanks to Tang Wan, and under Tang Wan's control, the students in this school are much more obedient than before. In their minds, being strong and competitive is no longer the only thing they can compare with. There are also other channels for comparison with the results of other competitions and various developments. She really, as she said in her speech at the conference, strives to allow all students to develop in all aspects. Rather than simply relying on a single score to determine the quality of a student, and for these students, scores are really not particularly important. Tang Wan is really doing his best to give them a healthy student life. This change is really unquestionable, so almost all the students studying in this school have a favorable impression of Tang Wan Bao, and it is very rare to have bad intentions. After Tang Wan's speech, everyone spontaneously applauded her, and there was thunderous applause. The old principal, who has not yet retired, looks at Tang Wan, who is thriving, and the pride in his eyes almost spreads out. Educating people and teaching is like caring for a precious seedling. Let these seedlings grow vigorously is an educator's greatest wish. End of this chapter.